Hey, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me today on my podcast show. How are you this morning?
I'm awesome. I'm really excited to be here. I think we've been waiting to connect for a while and it's finally happening.
I know I'm really excited, actually. I know food is a topic that's close to my heart and my whole family's heart.
Good.
Our connection to food is so beautiful, and the way that we bond through food. So I love talking about food.
That's awesome. I think I've met you, not formally, but knew you for quite a few years actually. Used to come in to go by to Curramundi, the health food store, and you and your family always used to stock up on all your goods. It was beautiful to see a family kind of come in together and stock up on all the nutrition they needed. So it's lovely.
I believe in the power of immersion, even if
Mhm.
our children aren't interested, and so to kind of be the example and
Mhm.
explain to them, there are different ways to buy food, to choose what you want to eat to nourish for your
Mhm.
body. And I think my girls over the years have noticed energetically
Mhm.
the difference in the places that I like to go to buy food than your normal
Yeah.
supermarkets. Like, they've figured that out for themselves. And
Yeah.
so they feel comfortable going to the market and feel comfortable coming to the Real Grocer, which is where
Yes.
you are. And we used to love going to the supermarket at Curramundi as well.
Yeah. I think it's in those places tend to have a little bit more sense of community. It's kind of, I think, what our souls need a little bit more. And so there are a certain group of people that come in that really crave that, as well as getting their good quality foods.
So I wanted to begin by asking you, where did your passion for food sprout from?
Well, to be honest, I always say to people, I feel like what I do comes through me, not of me. And I think it started from experience in my life. When I was 18, we were living in the big island of Hawaii at the time, which is where we were before we moved to Australia. So we kind of did this back and forth between Hawaii and Australia a few times. But I was back in Hawaii and just started my undergraduate, which was in originally a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences. I always loved understanding the intricate detail about the way the earth worked. So that was always my passion. I was always fascinated by it and in awe of it. So I started what I thought I knew my career was going to be. I'm going to be into biology and that field. And within that first semester on the big island of Hawaii, some people don't realize, but we do get snow, which some people think, well, you must be telling a fib. And I go, no, really, we do. Because on top of Mauna Kea on the big island, from C4 to the top, it's actually one of the highest mountains on this earth, but most of it's underneath the water. So very rarely in December around that Christmas time, if the temperatures are right, then we can actually get snow on top of the mountain, which is a really sacred space in Hawaiian culture. They do believe that Pele, the fire goddess, lives up there. So it is a sacred space. And my friends from university, we had heard that there was some snowfall, and we decided to go up there because some people go sledding, because it's kind of a unique thing to do, to be in tropical island Hawaii, drive a few hours up a mountain and be able to be in the snow. And I feel like that whole day was kind of like a divine intervention, I feel, because when we went up there with my friends, I ended up hopping on a sled on the snow, and then I got into quite a significant accident, which they didn't even know how serious it was, because it's so high in elevation that at 9,000 feet, you have to acclimatize. There's less oxygen. So you have to go to 9,000 feet, kind of stay there for about an hour or so, and then you can go up to 14,000 feet at the top where all the observatories are. So we went up there with a whole bunch of, university friends, and me and another one of my friends hopped on these sleds, and they said it was interesting. They said it was like all of a sudden I was heading in one direction and I took a big kind of arcing turn, and I ended up hitting a submerged lava rock at really high impact. And so I kind of hit this and fell down to the bottom of the slope, and they didn't move. And they at first just thought, oh, that's going to hurt. And then they realized I wasn't moving. And they thought, oh, okay. So I went down to the bottom, and they quickly realized that it was a serious situation. So they had to get emergency flights up there. So I got in a really big accident when I was 18 up on top of this mountain. and sustained quite a few injuries. I severed my renal artery, which is a big one. So there was internal bleeding, punctured lungs, broke ribs, broke elbows, pretty much lost the spleen. Did about everything I could do without really causing some major problems. But was air flighted down. My poor mom and dad. Now that I'm a mom, I think, oh my gosh, what I did to them. But then through that experience and being in the hospitals for what they thought was going to be, 7-8 weeks, my beautiful mama, who's always had kind of health in mind, she used to go every single day out to an organic health food store because I couldn't even actually physically stomach the food in the hospital. I just couldn't even seem to swallow it and get it down. So she would go out every single day to this health food store, and she'd bring in organic food and green sludgy smoothies and all this sort of stuff. And that's what I ate. And mind you, I was 18 and young, but I healed so quickly, so much that all of my doctors and specialists were like, what are you doing? Is your mom sneaking in some kind of medicine? Like, we need to know what's going on. And literally we just said nothing other than I'm just eating well. And it was a really impactful experience for me because, it's never fun being in a hospital, but I think they were anticipating me being in there, like I said, a couple months, and I got out in about 2.5 weeks with the extent of the injuries. And it was kind of like at that moment at 18 and experiencing that and truly understanding the healing power of food, I just knew what I needed to do. I just knew instantly. It was like divine. I was like, okay, this is my life path. And so pretty much after healing and rehabilitation and all that sort of stuff, I knew that I was going to be changing my degree into studying nutrition, because I just felt like, okay, probably shouldn't have survived that accident. And I did. So I must have had angels on my shoulders, and it was for a reason. And I felt like I needed to then pay it forward. I felt like pretty much from that moment on, I was like, I really need to help people learn and understand the healing power of food. So it's not me. I feel it's through me.
And I understand, as a healer, I understand what you're talking about when you say it's coming through you.
Yeah.
You're an open channel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're happy to empower, inspire, and motivate people in this way through your powerful story, which, such a powerful story. Wow. And to go through that at 18.
It was a gift.
Holy.
It's the biggest gift I've ever had. There's always beautiful things and tough stuff. I'm always a firm believer of that. There's a hidden gem underneath all the rough. And it was the biggest gift of my life, for sure.
I'm a believer that we grow through our times of struggle, that times of struggle are an opportunity to learn more about ourselves. And so when clients come into my healing room and they're struggling with something and they've opened their heart to navigate it and work their way through it, I'm always excited because I know they're about to learn more about themselves. They're about to, gain a little gold nugget of wisdom that's going to help them move forward in life. And so I wanted to ask you, how do you believe our relationship to food impacts our lives generally? We don't all need to have an accident like you did. So
no, not recommended. Don't do what I did. Learn from it. No, like I was saying before, I mean, I've been doing this. I've been in the industry for so long, but actively as a practitioner for probably 15 years. And I've seen change, which is really, really inspiring, but I still see somewhat of a disconnect that is, people are starting to kind of catch on and try and understand. But I really feel that people just don't consciously see the influence that nutrition can have in their overall health and how they feel in their entire life, which I think people are starting to think about that a little bit more. I think because of the busyness and the noise of our culture, there's often it's more out of a lack of time, and it's out of a lack of a loss of cultural practices too. I think we used to honor food, cooking, sitting down and eating a meal as a bit more of a sacred time and space. And like I said, I think it's the way we live our lives sometimes that it just kind of gets forgotten.
I believe that actually my husband's family is of Greek heritage.
Ah, beautiful.
And sitting down to eat is a huge thing together. Yes. And the way they create food and their love of food and connection, because it goes hand in hand, and family, it's such a beautiful experience to sit and eat them in that way. And I think different cultures do have different ways of celebrating, because Greeks often, their culture, their religion goes in together, really. So it's an all-in-one package. So I resonate with what you're saying there. So what is the link with food and conscious living? Because I can see that you consciously nourish yourself.
Yeah, you know what? I always say, and like I said, that biological foundation of me is never stopped. So the lens that I look through when I'm looking at nutritional therapy is I really try and tell people, look, we are biological creatures. And the further that we get away from biology and our connection to each other, our connection to Earth, the worse our health gets. The closer that we come back to that, the better it gets. And I always say the example of, like you said, with your family, of a culture that sits down with a meal and there's connection and there's happiness and joy. From a biochemical perspective, when we are eating in an environment where there is love and connection and happiness and joy, our nervous system, and this goes down to the real science of it, our nervous system shifts directly into that parasympathetic nervous system, which they call rest and digest. It means that everything can flow. Digestion can work. You know, your gallbladder and pancreas can secrete digestive enzymes and bile, and everything works really, really well. So I always say that is how we are designed. We are designed to eat that way in a community and around our loved ones and hold it. So I think it's a really important thing that we need to realize, is that we do need to bring some of these practices back into our homes. We do need to make sure that we prioritize and save time for preparing foods, for sitting down and eating them. It's just something that we do need to kind of make an active choice, because it just has been lost. And I think it's it's swinging. We're swinging it around a little bit, where people are sitting back down at the dinner table and having it with loved ones. It's such a important process, because I always say a simple choice like that of just sitting down with your family. I'm always a real science-based person. I like to explain to you, well, hey, do you know this is what's happening? This is actually what's going on in your body when you're doing something like that. So if we can just make that first initial decision, our bodies inherently and intuitively know how to operate, and it's the best option for us.
I love that you mentioned how, excuse me, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And for our listeners that are listening, other activities that activate that system are things like meditation, sleep. And so I didn't know that it was activated when we sat to eat in a relaxing environment. Makes total sense.
It does. I often say when people come into clinic and they've got, significant digestive disorders, and there's a whole array of health conditions that I often see. I say, look, one of the most beautiful and simple and free practices that you can do to help your digestion is sitting down at your table with your family, doing some kind of gratitude practice, or it's kind of like a little bit of a meditative practice, and doing some breath work. Because breath work is one of the most powerful ways that we can just shift those nervous systems. And if you just breathe, deep belly breathing, like we get taught in yoga practices and meditative practices, that is really just completely letting your body to have the most perfect environment for digesting your food well. You digest your food well, you're going to be able to absorb nutrients better. You're going to get more bang for your buck out of the beautiful meal that's sitting in front of you. So that's why I always say to people, please don't eat if you're in a rush. I don't want you wolfing down food, not even chewing it. multitasking, doing a million things, because that's kind of, in the last few years, I think people have really done that. And they've gone, this doesn't work. Because I see, you'd be surprised how many people's digestion is not working optimally. And I always say that's your body's sign. It's trying to tell you something that, hey, something within my environment just isn't right. So that's one of the simple things I always say. I mean, I know I'm a clinical nutritionist, but you can't ignore all of the lifestyle choices and the practices, like even the healing that you do, meditative practices, breath work. It's all part of it, because then it lets the body do what it's supposed to do.
I had an interesting experience when we were traveling in Europe about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that some foods here in Australia that I eat, my body doesn't particularly like. Mm-hmm. However, when we were in Greece and Croatia and Italy, I would eat those same foods, and I had no problem digesting it. And I'm someone that is very intrigued about patterns, and mm-hmm. I remember reflecting on it and thinking, well, why can I have dairy here, but not in Australia? Yep. And other than obviously the quality of the food, mm-hmm. the other thing that came to me was stress levels. Mm-hmm. That stress levels have to impact my digestive system, because I was so relaxed. Whereas when we're at home and we have stuff to do, we have a life to live. And so that was really, really interesting mm-hmm. to experience firsthand.
Yeah. Look, I'll be honest, lack of time and stress are the two biggest things that I fight in clinic. They're like my arch enemies when I'm trying to heal and fix someone's health condition. And the hard part is getting people to realize the biochemical impact that both of those have. And the lack of time is just not being able to maybe feel like you have the time or space to choose things that are better for you. But I tell you, stress is an absolute killer. It's so powerful. It's so powerful that if you're responding in a stress state in that sympathetic nervous system, or that fight or flight mode, or even just hyper aware and thinking and multitasking and just being really, really busy mentally, your body will prioritize being in response mode over all else. And this is digestive function, circulation, even your breath will change. There's so much of an impact that happens when your body has to respond to stress. I see it a lot with women with hormones, a lot of hormonal problems that are happening now. There's a big, big link even with stress there. So I just have to try and reiterate to people, like, oh, it has to be part of your healing program, as you have to look at how much stress and how can you shift some of your lifestyle. It's massive. I can't tell you how much I go on and on about it. It's like, you've got to keep some balance in life, which I love what you offer, what yoga therapists offer, breath work. There's the beautiful recovery rooms now doing saunas and thermogenic therapy. There's such cool stuff happening. And I'm like, yes, because it helps, my part in someone's, life to facilitate the healing process to be faster.
What we both do just complements each other so
Mm-hmm.
well. And for our listeners, it doesn't matter where you start mm-hmm. where, if you feel that food is where you need to start to make some shifts and transformations for yourself in a positive way, then start with food. Mm-hmm. Food is tangible, as well. Mm-hmm. And you can touch it, feel it. If you feel that energy healing is the way to go, or yoga class is the way to go, mm-hmm. spending more time in nature, whatever idea comes to you, explore it and be curious and see how it helps you to relieve stress, to mm-hmm. help your digestion. So if you had one tip for someone, because I know time
yes
is a huge one for people, because the clock, people are fixated on the clock. And mm-hmm. so for somebody who thinks, well, I don't have time to do all this, I've got to get my kids to their extracurricular activities. Then I've got to think about getting food on the table. And so many people mm-hmm. have decision fatigue.
Yes.
What would be your tip for someone who thinks that they're running out of time?
Yeah. I'm always a big advocate for what is your morning routine, because how you start your morning, I feel, just sets the thing for the entire day. And this is where I'm like, most people get out of bed, or before they even get out of bed, they're enumerating and thinking about all the million things that they got to do. And then that stress response just like immediately kicks in, cortisol levels go up. And I say, okay, morning routine is everything. So some people, like, they're in bed, they're thinking it, they get up, they have a cup of coffee straight away, spikes cortisol, gives you a false insulin spike, gets you whole in that kind of fight or flight mode. And I go, well, if we look at that and do a subtle shift of, okay, wake up at your normal time in the morning, start your morning with a 5-minute meditation or breath work. Just breathe when you wake up. Let your body kind of slowly wake up. We're biological creatures, like I said, so we're very intuitive to our surroundings. Believe it or not, I posted about this just the other day, of how important it is, even for sleep, for you to go up, get out of bed and expose yourself to sunlight. So if you can get out of bed and do maybe 5 minutes breath work meditation, if you have like a deck that faces the sunshine and the sunrise, go and do that, because those are those environmental cues. We have, pigmentation that senses light wavelengths. We have receptors in our eyes that as well. So it kind of gives our body the signal of, okay, cortisol should have this nice little peak, because we always associate cortisol with just stress response. It's actually what wakes us up in the morning, but we want it to wake us up at the right rate. And the best thing you can do for that is get up, expose yourself to sunshine, let your body go, okay, it's morning. And then go and have a glass of water, because I always say to people, you're dehydrated when you wake up. You go and have a cup of coffee, you're going to dehydrate yourself even more. So change tiny little changes in your routine. Go and have a big glass of water, or even better, go and have a big glass of water. And if it's quick and easy, chuck some greens powders in there, alkalize your system, get some good nutrition in there straight away. So even a small change from like just getting out of bed to having a cup of coffee, to shifting that to getting out of bed, breathing, and having a glass of water is actually huge. And it's small and it's not hard. And it really sets you up with your cortisol to be at the right level, because cortisol is a really interesting, stress hormone. We need it, but we don't want it to be too high, and we don't want it to be too little, because it's supposed to peak within roughly an hour after waking. And then it should have this nice gradual decline as you go throughout the day, because then that's the signal for our melatonin to rise. So you can actually affect the way you're going to sleep that night by how you wake yourself up in the morning. That's how crazy the body is. It's amazing. It's amazing. All this stuff is going on underneath the surface. So I think when people understand that and they go, oh, that's why that's important. All right. And they need their sleep. So little things like that's, I just say, what's your morning routine? Start with your morning routine and how are you starting your day? And that's kind of always my first tip. And I go tick that one off, and then come back to me and I'll give you another one.
I love morning routines, and I love that you've touched on it. So what's your morning routine?
I do. I wake up and I tend to just kind of breathe and sit there for a little while. Often one of my little ones will come in and give me a cuddle or a hug, but that's okay. You get some good hormones released when you have a good long hug, which is really good for the body. And then I do get up and I have a big glass of water. I put in sort of some like a little gut powder and some greens powders, and just kind of stop for a moment. We have a bit of a chat. The girls and I then together, we are now, I love it. They're at the age now that we're starting to make lunch boxes together. So we kind of use that as a little sacred space when they're getting their school lunch boxes and preparing. And we have this little formula that we use that we say to get balanced nutrition. I said, you get to pick a veggie. And sometimes they go out to the garden and pull off the snow. They love snow peas. So I have tons of those in our garden. So they run downstairs and they'll pick off the snow peas, and that'll be their veggie and protein and a balanced way of kind of getting their nutrition. And so we start our morning off just kind of even investing some time into it, which that's what I was saying is if you just put a little bit of time towards thinking about your nutrition, that's a great start. It's probably more than what most people are doing. Most people probably not quite consciously wander into the kitchen, grab something out, maybe don't necessarily think too much about it. Probably their mind is somewhere else. So it's about mindfulness almost when you're eating.
I see that with my youngest daughter, that making that decision to make a choice that supports herself, it's really a struggle for her at the moment. So for someone like a teenager who is, what is a tip that you could share with me to help her in the kitchen? I'm very much about empowering my girls to make their decisions on their own.
Yeah, which is beautiful. Sometimes with a teenage, gosh, I remember teenage years, they're hard. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of hormones. There's a lot of cravings. There's all kinds of things. The body's growing. It's just a big change. And it is very easy for, teenagers to kind of get into habits of eating certain things that maybe they didn't with a certain foundation, maybe that you've given them. And I always say, look, there's a natural rebellion that it's supposed to happen that teenagers have with their parents. And so sometimes what we say, they almost rebelliously don't want to accept. It's like innate in their nature within a teenager. And I say, sometimes it's about, I'm a big advocate of education. To be honest, at heart, I actually truly feel like I'm a teacher. I feel like teach someone, empower them, and they'll be able to make the links themselves. So for kids, I often use little tools like TED Ed. There's these little TED Ed clips, which are roughly 4 to sort of 8 minutes long. And I use them for all age levels, not just teenagers, but anywhere sort of from even 5 years old. It's a little bit science-based and technical, but even some 5-year-olds can get something out of it, all the way up into teenage years. And there's amazing topics on there about anything and everything, about, why do you need to drink water, fiber. There's amazing topics on there. So I often tell parents, as a little bit of a tip, look, sometimes it's a bit of a power battle. Remove yourself from it, but then try and facilitate a learning experience. Hop onto TED Ed, type in some clips about maybe sugar or things like that. And it explains the science and the physiology of what goes on underneath in their body, underneath the surface. And that will kind of stick with them, because once they've watched it and it's not coming from mom and dad, and it's something that they feel like they've taken ownership with, that when they go and actively make a decision for food, it might just pop back into their consciousness and go, oh, that's right. When we eat sugar, it's quite inflammatory and it can affect skin, because teenagers, of course, as they're going through puberty and sebum production changes, acne is a big thing, which of course a lot of teenagers don't want to have. So sometimes using that link and going, oh, okay, sugar, inflammatory condition causes that happen, can maybe facilitate more of my skin getting bad. I may not make that choice. So it's about educating them to go, okay, that's why I need to make this decision. It might help a little bit. Sometimes it just, when it comes from us, it's not heard until they're back into their late 20s and 30s. And they come back to mom and dad and go, what was it that you said?
I was saying to you before we hit record that I believe in the power of immersion. And even from a young age, I love going to the fruit and veggie markets here on the Sunshine Coast. So it's become a part of our routine, and it's a bit of a tradition on a weekly basis. When we can, we head off. And when Kiwana markets opened, my girls were young. They've been open for about 10 years now. And I remember taking the girls there, and they would get the opportunity to try little shots of kombucha, and they would laugh at me. I would get my green smoothies and they would be like, what are you drinking? We are never going to drink that. And interestingly enough, fast forward nearly 10 years, my eldest daughter drinks exactly the same smoothie that I like to drink. She's experimented with all of them, and she's come back. So, there's huge power in showing our children, even if they're not partaking or actively participating, they really pay attention to what we do and how we show up, and how our approach to food as well, how whether we enjoy cooking in the kitchen or whether cooking is an absolute struggle, that is something that will impact their relationship with food as well.
They're just little sponges, as you know, when they're little. They just it's almost subconscious, to be honest, some of what they're absorbing. So I just really say is we have to think about what is it that we're showing them. You know, if you really want your child to have health as a foundation, which, you know, that's the biggest gift that we can ever have, is to have health on our side, then they have to see mom and dad doing that. You know, my husband and I were a big advocate of, you know, a lot of exercise and training and all of these sort of things, because we just want our children to see that no matter what, mom and dad really made time for, you know, their health via way of hydration and nutrition and exercise and some of the recovery therapies. We're big into saunas and hot cold therapies. They see us do ice baths. They're probably thinking my parents are crazy. Actually, I remember it was a couple of years ago. What did I give Willa? I gave Willa something that was a little bit odd and obscure in her lunchbox. And some of the kids at, you know, her school, her lunchbox looks, you know, fairly different to some of the other kids. And she came home and she asked me, she goes, "Oh, Mom," she goes, "are we one of those weird families?" And I said, "Yes." And I go, "And it's awesome." I said, 100%. We're one of those kind of little bit crazy, a little bit zany. I said, because they probably do that, but isn't the norm now? Like when they see mom and dad hanging upside down in an inversion table, or if they see us going in an ice bath, it's like, oh, that's, you know, that's normal. And I think that's great, because I think at some point when they go through their own journey, they circle back and they come back to that. I think that's why it's beautiful what you're doing with your girls. And foundation is everything for our children. And we really need to make sure we do turn what's happening, because, you know, I unfortunately over the last 15 years, I'm seeing health conditions arise younger and younger and younger. And, you know, I think it was quite a few years ago that the first case, this is in the United States, of course, of a young child was age 3 and had type 2 diabetes already. And for a 3-year-old to develop type 2 diabetes, the type of foods that she would have been eating, I mean, that's a rapid change. These are things that, you know, in the past, it used to take a long time of a lot of, you know, not so great choices in food. So I do see younger and younger ages when it comes to health problems. So I really do try and advocate for parents to go, hey, it's really important. Because if you think about our generation, I don't know what your childhood was like, but I mean, I remember growing up in a garden. I remember doing the same thing that my kids do, and like eating radishes and then thinking, oh, those are a bit, you know, peppery and spicy and hot. And I remember picking green beans. Whereas my concern for the generations that are coming up is, I don't know if they have experienced what a home garden is, or what plant their food looks like that it comes from. And that's a big concern for me, because the generations coming up, I'm thinking, wow, their foundation and how early they maybe are eating processed packaged foods is a lot younger. So my concern for them is what kind of health implications is that going to have on them? So it's a big one.
It's really important, actually, isn't it, to know, my children are fortunate in that they do know that plant foods are grown and they come from the soil, and both our families come from islands. So predominantly families that grow up on islands eat a lot of vegetables and fruits and less meats, because that's not as accessible apart from seafood. So, you know, when my girls have traveled to Mauritius, which is where I'm from, and my husband's from Greece, they've experienced that firsthand. And it's just so important. It really comes back to connection, doesn't it? Connection with our planet and Earth, connection with each other.
Yep. That's this. It's what our soul needs at its very heart. That's what I say. We're biological. We've got, the closer we come back to our innate biology and our connection to earth, to planet, to people, the better our health will be. Like 100% guarantee. I go, that's the key. It's just coming back to our roots, really. I remember I took a bit of a break from nutrition for a while. I think it was right around that global financial crisis. And I thought, oh, I need to shift things and do things a little bit different. And I thought, I want to get to kids. I was like, I want to teach kids. So my ulterior motive was still to try and teach kids about health and nutrition. So I went back to university and got a postgraduate in education so I could become a teacher, and started teaching up at Stella Maris Catholic Primary School from Maroochydore there for a few years. And I remember one of the kids in one of the units that I kind of interwove the national curriculum into this health and nutrition program that I was doing. And I remember him saying that he never seen what corn had looked like on a plant. He just thought it came out of a can. And I went, oh gosh. I was like, this is just, it's not good enough. I was like, this is not good enough. So at that point, I remember I think it took 3 years. I wrote grant applications for 3 years straight, because you can do these grant applications from the gaming grants. Anyone that does all the gambling, they have to give back a certain amount of money to community. So I thought, I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to try and see if I can get one of these grants, because I wanted to have a huge permaculture garden at the school. And so it took 3 years of me pretty much just hassling these people. And I think they eventually just gave the money to us at the school because they just wanted me to go away.
Awesome.
Yes. But it was $25,000. So we got $25,000, and we got in a beautiful lady, Leonie Shanahan, from a group called Edible School Gardens. And we hired her to come in, and we facilitated a big development of this gorgeous permaculture garden, which, to be honest, the kids loved. They absolutely loved it. Kids love getting in the dirt and digging and building and constructing. And there was so much learning that you could do within that national curriculum. You could do art, science, math, everything you could really interweave into around that garden. And some of the parents were, coming in, they're going, oh my gosh, like, Lindsay, how did you get my kid to eat kale? And I go, I didn't do anything. I go, they planted it. They put the seeds in the earth, would go down, water, care, nourish, take care of it, would see it grow, would be a bit curious. We would make like kale pesto and do some cooking and things like out with rocks and things like that. And they wanted to try it. So I think if you actively bring your children into learning how food is grown and made, it's so much easier. It doesn't come out of just sort of a packet that we're disconnected from. That's what I was saying. It's that disconnection, which we have to reconnect. So I tell parents often a lot too, like, if you've got picky eaters, start a garden, like grow a garden, have them plant the seeds, give their plants a name, tell them how important it is to give the plants some love. And then they get to taste it afterwards. And you probably won't have half as many battles trying to get your kids to eat carrots or kale or anything, because they're connected to it.
That's so powerful. One of the other things I used to do when my girls were growing up was I'd create dinner, but I wouldn't have dinner, say, all in one bowl. I would have separate plates on the table, and they got to choose. That there would be options, and as soon as they reached, that was their choice. So, well, I'm going to try that. And I would I wouldn't not cook food because they don't eat it if my husband and I like to eat. And I would create the one meal, not separate meals to make everybody happy.
Yes. No, that's the worst thing you could do as a parent. Don't go down that lane.
No way. And then and you would have the option, like we always talked about, trying something, like giving something a go, having a mouthful. If it's not to your taste, that's fine. Then you can go and grab what you want, but you're going to have to create it yourself.
Yes.
So, and that worked really, really well. Just kind of like, Mexican meals where you can put your toppings on. The other thing that's worked really well in my house is teaching my daughters to cook. I didn't know how to cook when I left home. I had a mum who did everything for me. God bless her. Yeah. And I realized how beneficial it would have been for me to actually have been in the kitchen with her learning. And so that is one thing that I was determined to gift to my girls, was to learn how to create the meals that they love. And so that's what we did from a young age, started to teach my older daughter. And then my younger daughter, one morning I come down, she's about 7, she's in the kitchen. She has the little IKEA stool. She's on it with an apron, making herself breakfast with a fry pan. And I'm like, oh, what are we doing, darling? She goes, I'm making myself breakfast. Like, what's your problem?
Yes. You're like, this is, what do you mean? This is normal.
This is what I created.
It's beautiful. And in some ways, you know, us as women, we're traditionally the homemakers, the home keepers, and the nourishers, which is such an honorable, beautiful role to be in. And I think some women have kind of gotten out of the kitchen and they're more business oriented, and that's fine. That's their choice. But it is also a really beautiful practice just to be able to nourish your family and then to pass that on to your kids. And it doesn't have to be your daughters. It can be your sons. There's some amazing, you know, I love it. I love it when I see kids have those basic skills, because then just knowing how to cook means that when they become independent and they go out into university or they're living on their own, they're not going to just fall back into getting quick, easy, pre-made, takeaway, fast food, prepackaged foods. They have the skills to then go, wait a minute, I know how to mix something with whole foods and piece it together. So like, that's how important it is to teach kids how to cook, is you're really setting them up for good health down the track. Whether they use it immediately, who knows, but it will be a foundation they'll return to.
Another little tip that we do here to, number one, save money and to use everything that we've bought for the week, is at the end of the week, before we go to the markets, is to actually make dinner with what's in the cupboard.
Yeah,
and
like a bits and pieces
what
meal.
We can create. See what we can create out of that. And my eldest daughter, she thrives on that now. She just creating whatever's there. And whereas beforehand, you know, they would look for what they wanted, and if it wasn't there, there's no food, right?
Yes, my husband still does that. There's no food in there.
There's no food. No, there's just not what you're looking for. But what can we create with what we've got? So that's a little challenge that we do for ourselves once a week, to see what we can make up. It's good.
It's fun.
It connects you to your creativity.
Yep. Which as adults we lose. Children still have that. We got to take a page out of their book and be present and be mindful, because that's one thing that children are really beautiful at doing, is they're in the moment and they are creative. So we need to stop our adulting sometimes and try and be a little bit more like them, for sure.
So in our conversations together, when I come into The Real Grocer, I notice you place a lot of emphasis on nourishment. So what are the other ways besides food do you integrate into your daily life nourishment, or the theme of nourishment?
Like I said, it has to be all aspects. I listen to a lot of podcasts. One of my favorite from a mindset, and I use it a lot in clinic actually, is I don't know if you've heard of him. His name's Peter Crone. He's known as the Mind Architect, which I really love, because I know that a big hurdle for me when I'm trying to shift someone's health condition is trauma, past experiences, triggers, patterning, the way we think about things. And he's one of my absolute favorites. I still love to listen to him because I always get pearls that I'm like, oh, I can maybe refer that to a certain client. So I listen to a lot of podcasts and to get you to think about things consciously. So I'm definitely all about that. Exercise is, like I said, a big aspect that we always do, whether it's even gentle walks compared to, you know, different HIIT training and things like that, to yoga. We get a variety of it. I'm a big part about grounding as well. Like, that's what I was saying, is sometimes you can almost energetically feel, if you're having a day you just feel a little bit like you're disarray, going down to the beach, putting your feet in the sand. And we're so lucky here on the Sunshine Coast. We can not, we don't have to drive far and be able to do that. Even laying on the grass and looking up at the sky, like just some of these things that kids still do, you would be surprised how nourishing that is for our soul, aside from, just the nutrition. And like I said, the practices that we have is we definitely try and sit down and make it a special practice when we're eating, no matter what meal that we're doing. And also just talking about how lucky we are, and how grateful we are. So energetically, if you're in the right frame of mind and you're doing all these aspects to take care of your health, like I always tell people, the body is one of the most amazing, intricately designed, resilient pieces of machinery and magic you can ever imagine. And it is your best friend. And every single second of the day, it's trying to keep you alive. It's just up to us what environment we put it in and what it has to respond to. So I think it's really, really important. I mean, it's not just about the nutrition. I definitely know that it's a huge part, because it's the chemistry we put inside our body, but we've got to do all the other things bit by bit as well. So I think people get probably more than they bargain for when they come to see me. They probably just think I'm going to give them like a meal plan and recipes. And instead, I can't help myself. I've got to teach you about your biochemistry. I want to explain, okay, this is your health condition. This is what it is. This is why your body's responding this way. This is what caused it. This is the way out of it. These are all the things you have to do in lifestyle, all of the practices that you need to slowly, bit by bit, get into your life. And I pretty much say 100% guarantee you slowly do that bit by bit, your health will change. And that's what I was saying is, it's not just about even the knowledge that I learned through university about all of the chemistry and biochemistry of nutrition. I always tell people it's beyond that for me. I know from a very cellular level, like soul level in me, that if you give your body the right environment and nutrition, it 100% will heal. I just know that with every single cell in my body. It's about just getting people to realize and go, wow, 100%. Yep, I get it. I'm going to do right by my body and it'll do right by me.
And mindset too, I think, in addition to that, just takes it to another level.
It's a huge part. That's why I often say to people, I give them homework. I'm like, okay, I want you to listen to this particular podcast. It might be Peter Crone. It might be someone else. I want you to think about your little morning routines, and I give people just step 1, step 2, step 3. And I go, look, this is a journey. I say, you're the health condition that you're coming to see me for. It probably was, 5 or 10 years in the making. So therefore you have to at least anticipate 6 to 12 months of turning things around. And it's small baby steps. I always say, because people get overwhelmed with change.
Yes.
And I think I can sense sometimes when people walk in my door, whether they're like apprehensive and a bit nervous because they think, oh, my nutritionist is going to take away my coffee and my bread and I think they feel like they're going to get denied of all good things in their life. And so I really quickly want them to realize, I go, no, it's not about that. And I'm really not a big advocate of restrictive dieting or any of that. I go, it's about balance. And then there's choices within food groups that are better than others. But, you have to come at it realizing that it's tiny little daily choices, which is what makes the long-term change. So I often say to people, they might get several pages from me about a protocol or a plan. I go, but do not get overwhelmed by this. I said, I just want to give you a plan that you've got everything you need. But I literally just want you to pick one thing and wake up in the morning and go, what's my one thing that I'm going to do differently today? And it might be just drinking a glass of water. And I go, great, do that one thing for an entire week, get it into your routine and your habit, and then pick another one thing. And I said, even if you were to do one new thing every week over the course of 52 weeks in a year, you're going to be in a completely different place than you were a year ago. And that's what I was saying is it's that simple. It's small daily choices that really make a big difference. So it doesn't have to be big and it doesn't have to be hard.
And be kind to yourself. If you go off path or you don't actually fulfill your intention. I think kindness is so important. We're so hard on ourselves, especially if we think we need to be eating in a certain way and we don't, for whatever reasons. There are lots of times when that is out of your control. And I've learned, I went from being really quite fastidious about how I ate to realizing, especially being a parent, that I needed to relax the reins, and that being so controlling about it doesn't work either. And so now there's that happy balance for me. And what I've discovered is whatever I put into my body, I'm putting it in with love, because the intention is going to impact my digestion as well. So for people that are listening, have a goal and work towards your goal, but be kind to yourself.
Yeah. And just be happy, be excited. That's what I'm saying, is like when I ask, when I see people, I walk out the door, I go, how are you feeling? Are you excited? Or are you apprehensive? I said, because it's what will make or break it all. I go, you've really got to come at this with, there's no pressure. There's no stress. You want to be excited. You want to be optimistic. You just like moving towards a goal. I always say, I can tell pretty much straight away whether someone is going to be able to succeed in their change based upon their mindset. Because if they're trying to get away from something, like, I don't want to weigh, this particular weight, or I don't want to have this anymore, and it's all this kind of negative energy and communication and talking, versus I just really want to wake up in the morning and feel like I can do anything that I want and have vibrant energy and be excited. It's a very subtle shift in the psychology, but I know it's also what will make someone succeed, is if you're coming at it from a really light, happy, excited, motivated place. I just feel like when those people walk out the door, I'm like, they've got it. They've got it. And that's what I hope that in some ways that you can impart upon them, is like excitement. Like when I look at foods, I mean, like I said, I've always loved the intricate details. So when I look at a food, I know, like it almost becomes visual for me. It almost becomes visual for me, as I can actually see the areas of the body and how it's going to affect someone's chemistry in such a beautiful way. And so my only hope is that I can impart upon them just how beautiful that food is. And I always say, when you look at your plate, I don't like labeling foods good or bad or any of that sort of stuff. I go, the only way I want you to analyze your plate is it life-giving? Is this going to give me life? And if you can look at your plate and genuinely go, 100%, yep, it's got beautiful colors of the rainbow, it looks like life, it's going to give me life. That's the only way that I want you to actually measure your food. And it's a positive way of going about it, rather than labeling foods bad, or, I can't have this, I can't have that.
I love that we have that common denominator of living a life where we want to feel good, and we want to wake up and feel good. So whatever decisions you make that are going to help you feel good are ultimately going to help you make informed decisions that feel good, and will help your day to play out in a positive way as well. Eating food and nourishing ourselves with food is part of that.
Yeah. I think in some ways food it can go either way with us. I just the other day I had a guy come to see me, and he was really brave, and I really honored him. And he pretty much just said, he came in and he introduced himself, and he goes, I'm an alcoholic. And I go, you know what? I said, good on you for just even being able to speak that truth, because it's hard. It's hard to say that. It's confronting. But I said to him, okay, you gave yourself this title, which we don't need to have. I said, I know that the reason that people are drawn towards, whether it be alcohol or, processed packaged foods or sugary foods or things like that, it's for another reason. So I said to him, do you mind me asking? I said, and you don't have to answer if you feel uncomfortable. I said, but are there other things going on in your life where you feel, I said, do you suffer from any kind of anxiety? Is there a lot of stress going on? Is there relationships maybe that aren't so great for you at the moment? And he goes, 100%. He goes, I worry about everything. And I go, okay. I said, well, then the reason that you've gone down the route and maybe have an addiction to alcohol is because your body is craving some balance. It's a sedative. Your body needs relaxation. I said, so it would be very irresponsible for me to go, yeah, just stop the alcohol, do this, this, and this, and the other. I go, we need to come in and we need to find strategies for you, because it's self-medication. We often self-medicate with food. So if we're craving sweet foods and sugary foods, most people don't realize that the biochemistry of that is when we eat those carbohydrates, it's the most rapid route that our body can make serotonin, a neurotransmitter that makes us feel happy and calm. So when we're craving those foods, if you know that, you can kind of go, oh, okay, hang on. If I'm craving these particular foods really strongly, it's probably that my serotonin levels are low, probably as a result of other things that are going on in my life. And how can I make a decision that's a better choice to still get the serotonin, but not do something that's to the detriment of my body? So I even said to him, I go, we need to find strategies for you to come in and replace this alcohol with something else that your body really needs, which is some balance and some relaxation and some calming down and working on the anxiety. So I often say to people, you have to really realize that when you make certain choices in food, it's also a way for you to try and connect with your body of what is it trying to tell me? What do I need to learn from it? And then you'll kind of be more empowered and kind of go, it's a bigger picture. Yeah. And be excited about. And people, I think they're shocked too. They come to me, and if they do want to plan, they'll see that I'll schedule in like little sweet treats and things. They're often in the first half of the morning. It might be like 70% dark chocolate. And they went, oh, I never thought I'd go to a nutritionist. And they would literally tell me to have dark chocolate at a certain time during the day. And I go, absolutely. I said, absolutely. I said, but there's a big difference between 70% or 85% dark chocolate and a Mars bar. I go, so you can't go through life not having sweets and beautiful things in life, because that's all part of the fun of food. I said, but there's a big difference in the choice that you make between the two. I was like, I tell people, I don't restrict anything in my life. There's nothing, in no way do I feel like I'm denying myself of food ever. Because if someone were to put us like a Snickers bar or something in front of me and they go, here you go, I'd go, you know what? I actually genuinely don't want it. I don't have any interest, but if they put dark chocolate in front of me, I'll be like, hell yes. So there's little choices you can even make so that you don't have to change your whole world. I often say, look, if pizza is your thing, there's a difference between a processed pizza and a homemade pizza made with love.
Yep.
Major difference from the nutritional aspect. So you can still have all of your favorite foods. It may just require you to switch out ingredients, which that's one of the things I tell people to come into the Real Grocer with, for if you've got a recipe that you it's like grandma's recipe that you want to kind of revamp and make it a little bit more nutrient dense. Come in, bring in the recipe. I'll go, okay, well, instead of this particular flour, let's use this one. Instead of this ingredient, we can switch it for that one. So you can still have all of your most favorite foods, but we can very easily change it to be very nourishing and very nutritious.
Now, for anyone listening today that would like to connect with you or come and see you, where can our listeners come and connect with you, Lindsay?
At the moment, I always say, at present, I've kind of got an exciting project that I'm taking part of. So I'm not taking on new clients at the moment for a couple of months, but they can always come and see me at the Real Grocer. So I'm there every Tuesday and every Friday from 9 until 6 p.m. You can actually book a little consultation on the Real Grocer website, so that they can make sure that I'm not busy and they have a certain amount of time reserved for them. We also have services there looking at pathology analysis. So if you've gotten some routine pathology from your GP, I always say get a printout, bring it in. A lot of people don't even know how to read it. And I really want to empower and teach people to understand what all these, letters and numbers actually mean. So we do the pathology analysis as well. They can come in and bring in their results, and I can kind of teach them, because there's a lot of information you can get about your body just from routine pathology you get from your GP. It's the doctors just don't have enough time to be able to go through every little bit. So they can come in and bring pathology. We also do a lot of different diagnostic testing there. We're just about to announce like all the different, if people are interested and they've really gotten to a point in their life where I'm just not able to get a shift in my health after making changes in diet and lifestyle, and they go, something more complex is coming. We can do things like the antigen testing. We can do hormone testing. We can do hair and tissue mineral analysis. We can do all of that at the Real Grocer. So it is something that we're going to just be kind of posting a bit of a list of what's available there. But unfortunately, I do feel a little bit of, not sadness, but a bit of, in some ways, a little bit of guilt is that I just can't take on some new clients at the moment. But I've got another exciting project that I'm doing. We're formulating some functional foods with a company that has hired me. So I'm excited in one way. I've just got to take my energy and put it towards developing these beautiful functional foods so that we can help more people on a bigger scale. And then I'll be able to come back to doing a little bit more of the one-on-one clinic work.
And do you offer workshops at the Real Grocer as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I probably don't do as many as I used to around the coast. I've done them all over. The next one is going to be at the Real Grocer in the next couple of months. And I'm mainly focusing on gut health, which is such a big part of our foundation. So anyone that's interested in that, just keep an eye out at either on my social media or the Real Grocer. And there's always posters put up around the community and at the shop to be able to take part on that one. So in the next couple of months, that'll be the next educational seminar that we can have.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world. You're incredible. I love your holistic approach, and I can sense that you create a very safe space for your clients when they come in with no judgment, which I think is a really beautiful ability to have. I'm really appreciative that you made time to speak with me today. Today's podcast was actually a guest request by the beautiful Kat Moecks. And she reached out to me months ago, and she's like, you have to have Lindsay on your show. And I'm so glad that I reached out to ask you to come on. There's so much wisdom in your words. You're such a wise person. You've taught me a lot today.
No, it's an honor. It truly is. I actually love coming from Hawaii. There's a real community feel, and what you're doing and bringing people together, I just think it's amazing. I love it.
It's so important to me, as I was saying to you before we hit record, to share information that I know is going to add value to someone's life. And so the beautiful medium of podcasting for me, because I like a chat. I love a chat.
Yes.
And so many times I've had deep and meaningful conversations with people where I've just wanted to record it or wanted to be able to share that wisdom with other people. And so this is how I'm able to do that. And I'm so excited. I look forward to receiving feedback from today's show. I know so many people are going to love it.
Oh, that's okay. Come and see me. I love it. I will. Yeah. I can get you started on even the smallest little thing. I love it when they come in, people come in, they go, I just need a little bit of help. And I'm like, awesome. Let's do it.
I will be sharing all the links to the references that you made to TED Ed and Peter Crone and the Real Grocer, your website. That will all be shared when we post. So if there's anyone that Lindsay mentioned today, you'll be able to go and find them. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Okay. Have a great day.
You too. I'll talk soon. See you, Kay. Bye.